Welcome everyone to our June ordinary council meeting. I can declare the meeting open and now call for apologies and applications for leave. Looking around the table, there appear to be no apologies. In the case of no need to move anything, I'd like to move on then to the confirmation of minutes held on Thursday the 28th of May, our last ordinary council meeting. Councillor Irving had a request for her vote against the acceptance of the minutes of the 23rd of April council meeting. We recorded. We did have a look back through the notes that the General Manager and the Executive Assistant had taken on that at that meeting. Yes, Councillor Irving, you had actually voted against those minutes, but hadn't actually asked for that vote to be recorded. So we looked back through the recording just to check that, and yes, you voted against it. It actually hadn't asked for it to be recorded, but that's fine. We can now record that now if you'd like to do that. Is that? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's, we just need to amend those minutes to just note that Councillor Irving voted against the acceptance of the minutes of the 23rd of May. So, in line with that, would someone like to move that the minutes of the last meeting, the 28th of May, be true and accurate record with the amendment just proposed? Councillor Derrick, Councillor Walker. Any comment, Councillor Derrick? Any questions? That being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4 of our meeting, the disclosure of interest. Are there any councillors who have a disclosure that they need to make for any part of the forthcoming meeting? That being the case, there are no disclosures of interest. Item 5, the mayoral minutes. We had no mayoral minute to propose. So item 6, reports of the committees. The first of those is the meeting of the Annex Committee held on Tuesday the 16th of June. Looking for someone to move that. Someone to move the minutes of the Annex meeting. Thank you, Councillor Irving. Councillor Irving.
I have a couple of questions. Just one's to do with the backflow prevention policy. I just wondered, like, there seems to be a lot of things that, I mean, that's fine. I mean, it's all regulation, but are most homes in Warren compliant already with that, with those policy guidelines, or will they have to make some changes to their plumbing? I'm not sure who to address the question to. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, good question. Backflow prevention policy doesn't relate to houses, it says in the policy itself. And the reason it doesn't, every water meter has backflow prevention. In the new water meters we buy, the really old ones didn't, so they already have it. This relates to the bigger premises and relates to stuff that councils put in, like the big blue pipe on the other side of the river there, where if the water, stops, it actually throws the water on the ground. The high school's got backflow preventers in, so that the water they use on the ovals and things doesn't come back into the town water system. And there's a few places around, and people that have these units must get them tested by law, and the policies about that. So it doesn't relate to houses. Council takes that responsibility on. If the meter breaks down, we then replace it with a new meter that has backflow prevention installed. So,
what sort of prices? Maybe a price for that device?
The backflow preventer, it depends on the size of the unit. Somewhere between between $5,000 and $400,000. So the units we've been putting in are probably around about the $70,000 mark to put in, but it's there to stop contaminated water coming back into the town's supplies. So they're really essential units to have in place.
Thank you.
Another question, it's just to do with, I noticed that the advertising signs out at Never Tire aren't able to be actioned because you don't have an EDO. I just wondered if the Economic Development Committee is able to look at that. I know I've had the public mention their concerns about the signs, and yeah, I just wondered if somehow we can move forward with that, even though we don't have an EDO.
Just to answer that, because we don't have an EDO does not mean the committee cannot make. Our current project team also tend to pick up the economic development side and keep working on that, and it's important that that committee comes back into action. It is not about the people, it's the council employee, it's about councillors and where do you want economic development to go. So anytime you supply the meeting, that'll be fine. And as for the signs, yeah, they've probably reached the end of life now and something else needs to be developed.
We had actually considered that at our meeting, well, one of the ones that was 45% when we were outdoors, but yeah, take it on notice that we need to have one of those committee meetings needs of economic development.
So we'll ask Jody to organise that and we'll get a meeting together and see what things are up to.
I do hear you can't really see them anymore. Someone said they're hard to read and they're a bit crappy looking.
Yeah,
They're not the best. They're not in their best.
We're trying to reactivate the Economic Development Committee, and because it has fallen a little bit of the wayside because of the, in many ways, use of the personnel that really manage projects, and then the resignation of one of those. Sorry, Councillor Walker, you had a question?
I was just wondering, I think it's in the minutes, about the Traffic New South Wales has stopped the Shire from undertaking highway works. I was just wondering if there was any background to that.
The Roads Committee met on the weekend, and the new contract for the RMCC, which is basically the maintenance contract, and it does include work orders and contract work, is been quite a change. The Roads Committee, we met the other day and discussed it. The General Manager and myself are meeting with Transport for New South Wales representatives in Dubbo tomorrow to discuss the finer points. I know very well the RMS, Transport for New South Wales, would like the Shire to be part of their team. Just to know that we've got to discuss some of the more restrictive parts of the contract, which may put some level of risk and liability for council to be becoming as an ongoing concern. The big law come from
the Roads Committee, which is our next committee report, we'll probably discuss that a fraction further. But in terms of managing, so be mindful, councils, that we're not alone in this dilemma with Transport for New South Wales. Other councils are in exactly the same position, and it's just become very much more onerous, the way I'm reading it, on what we need to do and comply with to fall into line with doing the same work that we've done previously. So I think it is opportune that the Management Engineering Service and General Manager do make the Transport for New South Wales and start to iron this out.
Thank you.
Councillor,
The Works Depot upgrade, I noticed, is that, I noticed there's a fence coming out around the adjacent to the Wet Works Depot. Is that related to that upgrade? I've had people asking questions about that.
refer to which
There's, Mr Mayor, as part of all our changes for Crown Land, we've increased the size of Ball Flat, and there's new posts going in, which is on the boundary line of where the Ball Flat pump area is, because there's new tanks to go in there. I think that might be the fence you're talking about, because the posts are in, but there's no panels. So it's not part of the depot upgrade, but it's part of the grant we received for that $1 million grant that's to go from Ball Flat to Ellen Gerard. So we've identified the property now by survey, the fences going in and new tanks will go there, and you would have seen signs and that on the laneways stopping you going up the laneways where works commenced. Just put that pipe work in through there, and well, once the school goes on holidays, we'll be through and up past there. So I think that's the fence we're referring to at this stage. It just looks a bit funny because there's no panels.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor. Any further before we put those minutes of the Mannix meeting? That's the case. I'll put that. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. Moving on to the meeting we spoke of a minute ago, the road, the inaugural meeting of the Roads Committee held last Wednesday. So, Jim, someone happy to move the recommendation there? Councillor Beach, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Beach.
Did you want to elaborate on what you were just mentioned? Councillor Walker's concern?
Yeah, I think so. The recommendation there covers basically those 3 points. The issue is, councillors, that if council is the principal contractor in doing work for Transport New South Wales, they then assume all liability and ongoing liability for the work that's done. So that could be hence could be in relation to a traffic accident that occurs on that road years hence. So the committee has some reservations about how deep the financial implications of accepting that contract, the road maintenance council contract, the RMCC, and what it would mean for this council if things came unstuck. And we're particularly mindful of the construction we did do on behalf of then RMS New Colli, where no matter what you did to that road, you couldn't get the compaction right. And so hence the idea that the General Manager and the Manager Engineering Services go and meet with Transport New South Wales and try and just sort this out. If we are a subcontractor to them or someone else, then that whole liability doesn't extend to the council. We are just a subcontractor and we continue on in the same way that we have done previously. So that's something that really needs to be ironed out before we go further. I take on board. I believe that Transport for New South Wales are keen to have us on board. It's just a matter of how that would occur. I don't know whether the General Manager wants to elaborate further.
Mr Mayor, look, we are happy to do roadworks, but not under this contract. So if they modify the contract, and that's part of the intention of the meeting tomorrow, then we will bring back a suitable contract. But at this stage, we're having a discussion about variations of contract, and we haven't received a copy of the contract as to what the variations might be, whether they're going to write them individually for the councils, but I would hope that other councils have raised this matter with them and a better contract comes out to look like the work and the work orders that we currently undertake.
Mr Mayor, is there then, in light of the meeting that's going to be happening tomorrow, is there any value in holding over this until after the meeting, or because I'm just thinking about version control of that
this reads as if we're throwing the contract out, we're not going to agree to it regardless, and that's fine, but that's based on the version we've seen, not the version that might be on the table tomorrow. So if we hold this over until after that, we can reconsider, is there any value in that? This is fairly final, but tomorrow could be a whole new ballgame for us. It's a little heavy-handed.
Mr. Mayor, the requirement for this contract was we signed it and we turned it by June. That has gone past. We have received an extension to come to this meeting. I think this current contract should be refused so that it's there, and we should be also undertaking the other things, writing to the ministers and, Transport for New South Wales to refuse the current contract, and the new contract that's produced will then consider it. Otherwise, it's one of those things that we're holding it in abeyance, and we need to make a strong point to them that really we want to do the work, but we want to do it under the existing system without all the costs and risk controls that are in this contract, that they take back that liability so that we can get on and do the work. And so it will be a totally new contract, because I know some of our councils have signed this contract and sent it back as is, which good luck to them in the future.
Yep. Thank you. Any further discussions, questions? Look, I think it's a sensible way to go. The recommendations that are there, and then we made it plain to Transport New South Wales what we're thinking. It's not the sort of thing that a small council like we are can accept. It's just
Actually, take it under. Yeah.
So, Councillor Irving, go ahead. Yes.
Is there potential to, if we're successful in our negotiations, can as Councillor Brewer alluded to, maybe if it does turn out in our favour, we can have a contract re-established?
I think so. That's the intention, is to actually continue doing basically what we're doing now. What we're not excited about is the potential for that liability to be transferred from Transport New South Wales to us. That's the issue.
Is this just a purely shifting the money
Shifting
responsibility?
Just comment. If we do a lousy job, we should fix it, and that's how it currently is. If for some reason we get given a job and it's not complete as into its design or to meet the requirements, and we carry the risk, that's just not acceptable. So we can be given a job and under their controls and still take the liability for everything that occurs after that, even though they may have designed it. So you just can't take that risk. So if we get a new contract, it'll come back to the Roads Committee for discussion, and we'll continue to have these meetings with them, not sure until it's suitable.
That Roads Committee meeting was productive. We will undertake our next meeting in August sometime, and we're going to start doing a tour of our local roads. The other things you'll notice in there that were mentioned were Mark Colton later today is the inland flat route. There's been some issues flagged there that we might be ready to move on, and we're actually partly relying on the Commandville Shire Council to come to the party in terms of the road, that total inland flat route, and they're probably perhaps just dragging the chain a little on that. But it looks as though that is getting some traction. The two bridges along the one road intersection, well, the level crossing at Nevertire, and what was it, something else road? There was 4 things on board. No, south of Nevertire, yeah. So I think it's getting some traction. We just need to make the point to Mark Colton today that part of that route is actually our local roads as opposed to regional road, and hence the funding comes from our ratepayers, when in many ways it's been utilised by heavy vehicle transport that probably is not local, isn't local.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
With regards to the road trip, is it only the traffic committee that will be doing that? Or is
Councillor,
it-
so if you come like to venture out beyond the streets of Nevertime,
I was thinking of the Shire, not so much Nevertime.
I think Heather needs some female company.
we'll wait till we get some information regarding that first meeting in middle of August sometime.
Just request.
That's a good
Bring me packed lunch.
Any further questions, comments before we put the minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Roads Committee? That being the case, put that all those in favour? Yes, carried. Reports from the council, reports from the delegates, there are nil, no policy. Moving on to reports from the general manager, I'd just like to make there that we have a fourth item in the report of the general manager, so we'll just probably need a minute when we come to that discuss it in terms of it's been tabled there, the shade structures of the. The first of those is the outstanding reports checklist. Someone happy to move those, keeping in mind those asterisks will be the ones that will be deleted. The move, Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Surdy, Councillor Taylor.
Just a question on the public toilets that are going in. What's the time frame there? Obviously, land has to be transferred, but toilets ordered and ready to go.
I would love to say yes, they are. We're working through the contract. No, the contract's ready to sign as for us, but there's another party also to this contract, and we're looking at relocation of easements at the moment and the cost. We haven't got a final cost on the toilet block at this stage, but yesterday morning a plan did come in and we sent it back just to say, well, yeah, we need a couple of things varied within it to make it simplified and fit into the area that we've got. So it will happen fairly quickly. We just need this third party to say yes or no as to contributing the costs of moving easements, and we want to have it all ordered and put it in straight away.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the outstanding reports checklist? So being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2 of the General Manager's report, that being the committee delegates meetings. Someone happy to move those? Recommendation? Councillor Irving, second. Councillor Barrett, Councillor Irving.
I just want to let people know, I know interagency isn't a council, committee of the council, but we did attempt to have a meeting on the 11th of June, and yeah, we only had one person able to attend, so that didn't go ahead. I just thought I'd let people know that.
Good. I mean, it is a valuable committee just to keep things happening. Question, have we heard anything about the General Manager or to Jody or General Manager really? Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference, is that still going ahead? And then there's the next one, the National Local Roads and Transport Congress down in Tasmania and Hobart. So we're hearing anything yet? Too far. We're not getting across the border to Tasmania anyway. At the present anyway.
The LG New South Wales conference is still listed, is going ahead, but there's been no more information come out. But we're pre-prepared for that, and we'll see what the answer is.
One day.
Yeah, that's the time.
Which one's that?
It's clicking up.
Oh, yeah.
Any further comments, questions on the, sorry, someone, can you come to Walker? Yes.
I was just wondering if something came out of the joint organisation meeting, which was.
No, so all the, no, it's a very, it wasn't a very long meeting. All that really happened was Brad Cam, who's the General Manager of Midwestern Regional Council, assumed the interim role as Executive Officer of the JO Board. He is doing that. There is no fee attached to that, so that they're doing that gratis. His only move forward was perhaps that member council of the JO be involved in the public consultation part of proposed high-speed internet highway from Dubbo to Cobar, and that, so if the council's be involved in that and be paid a fee for that, and that somehow helps the JO. And I'm not too sure exactly the detail, but that was just a high level thought. Beyond that,
No update with Dubbo.
Dubbo are holding, no, they've chosen. One thing that Peter Evans from the Office of Local Government did state was that our thought had been if Dubbo came in, it would be a whole new JO. What Office of Local Government's thought is, no, that is not the case. It's just a modification of existing JO, so it would continue on. Dubbo has held back, saying we'll wait for the review that's going to take place in September before they make any further decisions. They have made the offer of taking up the administrative role for the JO and becoming part of the JO and making a fairly substantial contribution to the JO financially. But now they've given what has happened, they've just held back and that wasn't accepted. So they held back and said, we'll wait till after this review and see where it goes from there. So,
thank you.
none the wiser. There's another meeting on very soon, which I assume not much will happen because it's really, in many ways, it's in abeyance, in for want of a better term. And until we realistically, until we have Dubbo on board and hopefully eventually Canamble, and the longer it comes forward in the Northwest JO, yeah, it's hard to just see how it progresses. But I believe Brad has a view that we share is that it has to be self-funding organisation and that we have to not just be chasing ways of making it financially secure. We have to be a bit proactive and saying, you know, these are the projects we want to see. How can we be involved to make these happen and those bigger projects? But the end result, no, not a whole lot's progressed, and I don't anticipate much happening in the next short period. Councillor Walker.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else there?
Thanks, Mayor. I think that the local government water conference has been moved to September, I think, in Narrabri.
Okay,
I think it's still,
right.
yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, we might just take that on notice and just check that out. Thanks, Councillor Bruce. Yep. Okay, anything further on the committee delegates meetings? In the case, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 3 of the report of the General Manager, that being the Public Arts Committee formation. Looking for a mover of there, the recommendation, and perhaps then an additional point regarding membership. Councillor Williams, you happy to move that?
Can I do a modification recommendation, please?
Yeah, would you like to amend that?
Yes, I'd like to amend that recommendation. The first point, the council form a S355 committee under the Local Government Act 1993 to develop public arts. And the 2 councillors are elected today. 5 community representatives are appointed in the July meeting, officially. Number 2, there will be some minor changes to the functions and responsibilities of the committee, which will come back to Warranshire Council in July, at the July meeting to formalise.
Thank you. So we have a mover, Councillor Williamson, second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Williamson.
Oh, look, we talked about it earlier. I think this is going forward.
Sorry, you know, just checking it. We've got it all written down. We're saying, Councillor Williamson, we'll get it from you
Oh, look, this is a committee which has been on the cards for a fair few years now. There's some very passionate people who will be on this committee who want to go forward. It's for us, it's for everything in County Mirrors. This is a committee which will come back to council for decisions. We've just got to tidy up the functions and responsibilities a bit, so it's very, I could say black and white, but very straight, so we've got no grey areas in there, so the committee knows where it's going to go and very formalised. So it's going to be, it's a very positive committee, to be honest. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think Councillor Williamson, that thing that's people away, that is the rumours floating around that the Stafford Street Reservoir was potentially going to be demolished. And that's the project that this committee's identified as the first potential one. So I think that's it fits together well to actually say yes, it's not being dealt with in that severe way, but it's actually going to be a benefit to the community. So.
Is that an offshoot? Can I ask? That's an offshoot to this, but does it need some work done to it for it to be standing and not leak and the Stafford Street? Is this a time to bring it up? I don't know. Probably not.
Down on Ball Flat, we'll put whatever it was, 600 or 800,000 litres of water at Ball Flat, which will then pump through to Ellingerell. So currently, all these have the water level lowered, so it's not leaking that we can see on the outside anymore. And structurally, it looks okay on the outside. As a water tower, it does need work on the inside. If you don't resurrect it as a water tower, and that require inspection and so on. So I think their reports will have to come back as to, will it be a water tower in the long term? And what would the cost be to keep it as a water tower, knowing that, we'll have 800,000 litres sitting on the ground there, which will pump back to our towers at Ellingerell. So there's plenty of backup.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor, Councillor,
No,
I think we should, as part of this recommendation, call for some nominations for 2 councillors for that committee now, so we can actually put the names in the resolution, if that's acceptable to the councillors.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, will you take that nomination, Councillor Williamson?
I will, because I've been involved with these people for a fair while now, and I think they trust what direction we're going. So I'll start this off. As also in function and responsibilities, you might see this committee is only for the duration of this council. So this committee then has to be restarted again with new councillors and new committee members if they want to stay. So it's like I told you, this is only a quick process because we have some money there for the grant funding to spend and stuff. I think it's worthwhile trying to get these coordinations we're going through.
That's one nomination that we've decided on, that we are proposing. There could be 2 councillors as part of that committee. Councillor Sergi, I'm looking at you perhaps.
Oh, sorry, I'm in pain. Sorry, yes. No, I mean, I've got to
That's not what
There's sort of something going on.
The only reason I'm looking at you is because of Outback Arts, etc., and that connection.
Yeah,
If that makes sense to
I was
you.
going to put my hand up, but I can't. So I'll have to do this one. It's a good choice.
Is it? I'm only asking you.
Yeah,
I'm not being nominating someone else in the form like.
Doesn't go forever, this committee.
No, you're right. No, as I said, I think it's the fact that I am involved in the arts as a wider range. Yeah.
So I'm nominating you from the chair then in regards to that. Are there any further, I mean, this is an open ballot. Would we like to, if there's someone else who'd love to, we can go to a ballot and.
Big right choices.
Yeah, good choices.
Yeah.
Those of us on the roads committee, we've chewed up a bit with the roads committee. I'm pretty fully booked.
Okay. So, Councillor Williams, you're happy to take your nomination. Councillor Sergi, happy to accept that nomination. So we might include those 2 names in the recommendation. is there any further discussion before we put that?
Looking forward to seeing what you do. What's produced.
Mr. Mayor, I have had encouragement to go on the committee by members of the public. But of course, I need someone to nominate me. But yeah, I'm open. Like, I'm happy to be on if people feel I'd be valued. But we only can have two, so yeah.
Well, there's built-in redundancy, I guess, if one of the other councillors can't make it. I don't have a problem having three. Okay, I'll nominate Councillor Irving if that's appropriate to the already nominated committee members.
I'll second that.
It just means that there's redundancy, I suppose, if all two councillors can't make it.
Two in a reserve, is that what you're thinking? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, okay, that's why they don't do that.
And the reality is councillors can attend committee meetings as they see fit.
Okay, so I think the end result of that is that Councillor Williamson and Councillor, no, I think Councillor Irving just happy to be a reserve. I think is that the way we're seeing it or not?
Alternate.
Alternate. Is it, or
Whatever
Okay.
term is.
or we're having a vote, or Councillor Brewer's proposing now that we have three. Is that what?
I don't mind having three. I just think that if in your guidance you can put that there needs to be at least two councillors at a meeting, and we have three available, I think that's fine. It's an unwritten reserve, but I think.
Or Councillor Williamson, you can change your motion.
I can say we've changed my recommendation.
Have three.
Council would be happy doing it.
Have three.
Everyone agrees with that. We can have.
Are all able to vote though? Are all three are able to?
We just
we can do
the combination of what that committee, how that will be formalised, so we can decide here today. But just a thought, we have two. If there's three, if Councillor Williamson as a proposer of the motion is happy to go to three, yes.
I'm happy with the recommendation to three councillors. That's fine. If someone would like, who was my second?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that too.
That's fine.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion, Councillor Williamson?
No, I think it would be a great committee to be on. Very excited.
Thank you. Okay, so you just get that tidied up, but the thrust of it is that the Warren Public Arts Committee will be formed of 3 councillors and 5 representatives from the community. Those committee representatives are being approached at present, and the 3 councillors nominated will be Councillor Williamson, Councillor Stevens and Councillor Irving. The other part of the recommendation was that some parts of the governance guidance of that committee will need to be tidied up, and that will all come back to council for formal adoption. The way forward with that committee and its guidelines.
Just quickly, I'm just wondering item 3.12, observers and visitors, is that normal in the committee? That you allow people to sit in unless there's a camera present?
And it won't be, yeah, you can do it. But
Okay. But they have to go ask you first if they can come. Okay.
Christian guest council. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments before we put that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the late item on the desk here regarding trade sale at the Warren Memorial Swimming Pool. So as we alluded to, there's some costings there. I might defer to the general manager for a minute, and then we might actually suspend standing orders for a little few in order to discuss this one because it's just been tabled now.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies to council for the lateness. I just want to raise in the quotes you've received, obviously the quotes to council, not for public visibility, but on page 8 of 23, the area it says on that page 21 metres by 23 metres, which says 16 by 23 metres. That's This report has come about because council has allocated money out of the drought fund towards shade structures, and after discussion with the sports facilities committee and the second meeting, it was discussed that shade structures be put up in replacement of the steel structures. And as Councillor Irving has indicated in the past, there is a master plan that included steel structures to be retained in that plan, but council's decision was somewhat overrode that, and hence the reason for the report today. You can see that the main cover, the deep end of the pool, is PVC, water resistant cover to go in, and it's $93,000. At the wading pool end, the cover going there is $34,000, and where the viewing area is on the western side of the pool is the water resistant covers is $61,000. In putting this together, we asked for alternate prices, and you see that an open weave structure is much cheaper than a PVC structure. Throughout this process, the swimming pool manager has been involved all the way through it, and comments and suggestions being made, hence the reason for the PVC water resistant cover in 2 locations. I'm not 100% sure why you need water resistant covers at a pool, but there were steel structures in both those places where people line up for races and wait at that point, and parents stand and view the races as well. So I'm not sure whether it rains enough in summer to warrant it, but I guess there's times when you do need that cover. You can see the total funding for this is nearly $189,000. So it's split $100,000 out of the drought fund, which was an allocation made by council last meeting, and $89,000 will come out of the loan to be taken for the pool upgrade. So other than that, I'm happy to take questions, and you can see by the quotes there's a number of different structures on there. So the structures we're talking about will be on page 6. The quote on page 6, which is representing structures, page 8, and page 15.
I've been a bit with this. I didn't get a mover in the second. At first, just to go, just to spend standing orders here. So, I mean, Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Williamson. All those in favour? Suspending standing orders for discussion. Thank you. Next. No. Okay. I think it makes it easier just to ask some questions here. The first thing, when I looked at it, I think it doesn't look square, but it actually is square. It's just the offset heights of the posts, they're triangular sections. They're actually not. Those deceptive. Just to clarify, both the shallow and the deep end, they're both the same size, are they? Or just
The deep end is 16 by 24.
Yeah.
And the shallow end is 21 by 24.
So it is in fact bigger then.
It's bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it covers the whole pool, the toddler's pool, covers the whole of the toddler's pool, and it's to that end, and the shade in summer moves back over the shallow end of the main pool for about 6-7 metres, which is what Wendy wanted as part of it to keep the water warm in the pool. So you can stand in the shade in the afternoon in the main pool, but during the day it will be in full sun. Hence, and the same with the deep end. The structure does not extend past the starting blocks. So the shade in summer will go back towards the water tower, so which is area where people stand and wait for races.
So these guys have done I don't know whether it's in here, but they've done some shade diagrams that I've looked at earlier when we were doing the state. I don't know if they're in here, but they've done some really good work in assessing where the shade will actually be at various times of the day during summer and winter. So I don't have any problem with that. The only difficulty I'm having at the minute is justifying. I don't have any problem with the shallow end. I don't have any problem with waterproofing along the spectator side. I'm just wondering about that area at the deeper end being waterproof and the cost of $90,000.
So what's the alternative to the $90,000? So there just doesn't seem to be an alternative price for the open weave, is that right?
Well, it'd be on the order, Andrew, of the 30 odd.
34.
Again.
34 again at the deeper end, given that open weave there. So that's the dilemma I think we've got there, whether you justify having
Do we know how much sun this open weave keeps out? Is it close to 100%?
No, it's not. It's around about 75% from the info I've read in the past. So, sunlight does come through. Not extensive. It's all about shade and.
But as you pointed out, I can remember my kids being at those afternoon carnivals at the pool, squad and those sorts of things. And the sun, I'm not saying this is how it should be either, but the sun did come in the late afternoons in summertime, and that little shed that was down there did not much at all, really. It seemed to me it was used to corral the kids rather than shade them, just to keep in one spot so that, someone could marshal them for the next races. And then the swimming club approached us for that shade structure, and Jeff McKay was behind that funding, and we got that, and we co-funded that structure. It's a shame that will now disappear, but I'm struggling with the waterproof requirement, the water resistant requirement to have the water run off. For the extra cost, but I mean, Cobar, looking at Cobars, that yellow stuff there, from what I can read, is water resistant. So that runs water off as well. So it's been justified above the pool and those other areas. But the thing is here then, there's no area that anyone can go to when it is raining if you're a spectator or a parent. If we go with this, is that right? Am I assuming that everything will be open weave?
No.
Except
the western side where the shelter is now, or was.
Okay, so they could get out of them.
So it's the viewing area, Andrew, the number 3 there, right? That'll be 61 grand to do a waterproof area along the western side. It was, whatever it's like. Andrew, you can have a look and see what the width of that was.
That's on the side of the skate park. Yeah. On that side, so you come into that area. If you actually go down there, like those structures had to come down because you have a look at all the levels there. That whole area needs leveling as well. Because you actually got it's all up. It's like that. So you basically need, before you go in there, you need to get a bobcat with one of those laser levels on and try and level it a little bit better too. It's not.
Is that a part of this?
No, it's not a part of that, but I think down this, they'll have to probably look at this part of this morning and have the next meeting. They'll have to have a go at that as well.
So you're saying before even the shade structures are put in, it needs to
No, they're all right up there, because up there is where they're putting down all the concrete. That's fine. All the concrete has been done on them, but on the side, they'll have to do something there once all the concrete is finished, everything, when they're put down. They'll actually have to do some work on that as well.
the western side.
The western side, yeah, that's all done.
I don't, at our meeting, I don't remember requesting remove the steel structures. I felt that there was general consensus that they would stay and that the extra shading would just complement the steel structures. So I'm a bit not sure why there's been a change where we're removing the steel structures completely when I don't remember discussing that before. and especially when the community have fundraised for the steel structure. I'm concerned that we're moving ahead more quickly without proper consultation. I know you've said you've talked to the pool manager. Last time at the meeting, the pool manager and the centre manager said that we'd be retaining the steel structures, and I don't remember. The only shade that we were adding with the sails was to kind of complement the steel structures, so I'm not sure whether we need to remove the steel structures.
Just to go to the general manager on this.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Irving is partially right in that on the meeting of the sports committee, we went on site and we talked about the steel structures and coming back with designs for steel buildings to go replace and go over them and put solar panels on. There was a subsequent meeting of councillors the day after, which councillors who were there, we had a nice photo in the park taken by the paper, and we talked about replacing the steel structures with shade structures, and that's where the impetus started. The steel structures on the western side were not to be replaced with shade sails. They were to come back in, but they had to be removed because all underneath them are the pipes and the electrical conduits and things that we're working on now. So all that had to be taken away to do this work. We've come back with a price for that side in shade sails. So those structures where the parents normally stood were to come back, and they can still come back, but we had to take it all away to do this work because most of our problem areas are straight under those structures. So whether that gets changed or not, but at the second meeting of the councillors on site, we discussed taking away the structures at both ends of the pool and replacing with shade sails. And that's my recollection, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the meeting at this.
I remember that meeting, and I did stress that I wanted pool users or people that know the pool well to be able to have input to this, which included the pool manager and the centre manager. So my decision on the steel structures depended on that input from them. So I wasn't happy with removing steel structures until I had assurance from those two people that that was the way to go. So I remember that too.
And Mr. Mayor, those conversations have been held with those people. And hence the reason we've gone and got the quotes. But again, I'll tell you that the pool manager has not seen these quotes. These quotes are before council. I believe that they needed to come back to council because of the cost, more than the fact that it's a change to what the structure is.
Is it appropriate, Mr. Mayor, that it goes back to the Sporting Facilities Committee to come back with a recommendation, or is that we need to be too much timing?
Timing. Then, if that's the case, you will not have any shade structures up this next pool season.
Okay. Because
if we're going with these structures, then we need to put in the deep piers, which will be at least 4 metres deep and 900mm diameter, and they need to go in before we finish the concourse.
So our committee delegates need to be making a recommendation to us.
Yeah, I think there is some confusion here, and I have to support Councillor Irving on the steel shade structures part of it. I'm actually fine to move forward with these PVC, or not, well, these new shade structures, because they'll not only look fantastic, they'll last for quite a while. But I remember Kerry Jones at that meeting that the skate park and the Sporting Facilities Committee meeting, he shut the conversation down fairly rudely and said, it's not happening. The steel will stay. I'm like, okay then. You know, and I couldn't make that meeting the next day, and it did change very quickly and overnight. So I support Councillor Irving on that, and so it's not a blind side, but all of a sudden we went from shutting it down really firmly on that one day to all of a sudden it's on again. But the pool manager did, at that first meeting, made a request and for these structures to be put in there, and that's how that whole thing came about. And Kerry said, no way in the world, still staying, let's move on with the conversation, or those your words to that effect. So I'm glad to see in some ways that we have moved past that steel structure thing, I hope. And if we leave the steel structures in, they're going to look pretty ordinary and very second-hand, because that's exactly what they are. It is unfortunate that the fundraising and the money that the swimming club and that the council has put in kind of ends up as being naught. But at that time, we couldn't have seen what was going to happen to all of this, and I think we just have to move past that fundraising thing. It's just unfortunate. But look, at the end of the day, they're getting a cracking setup out there, and it's only a shade structure. And at the end of the day, I think we can move past that. The one sticking point in this, I think, from my perspective, is the $92,000 for the water-resistant PVC. And that's really, I think, what we're about to vote on. I think that as a consensus, that points 2 and 3, I think should go ahead. The point 1, I'm going to, after a change to the recommendation that the open weave shade structure is put in place of the water-resistant one, personally, because it's a heck of a spend. You know, but to look at both sides of the coin, we get one go at this, and it's not like we're going to be able to do this again, but we are spending money hand over fist, and I'm just looking for somewhere to cut a corner and save some money on this.
I think the thing we might just have to do, I'll ask for correction on this, but once we do one, if we say open weave, I think the superstructure might not need to be as substantial as it would if it was a waterproof structure.
Okay, so further savings.
So really, that's where a lot of the saving. So really, once we make that decision, though, we're locked in. We can't then in the future put
upgrade it.
Yeah. So I think we just need to be a little bit.
Yeah, we also need to be mindful that there is no shade over the pool currently. This is a significant improvement to the quality of that site as we see it. And you know, we've had to borrow money for this. I just think we need to, if we have an opportunity, to be a little bit frugal without really holding back the quality of that place. I mean, I'm just down for open weave, save a few dollars.
I wonder what the breakdown is between the cost of the actual fabric itself and the superstructure that supports it. You know, is most of the money tied up in the actual fabric, or is most of the money tied up in making a stronger supporting structure?
Maybe we don't get that, Frank.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if I could just make a comment on Councillor Brewer's comment. The comment you made about Kerry James saying the steel structures were to stay was 100% right, because we had no funding allocated by council to replace the steel structures. It was at the subsequent meeting where councillors then talked about changing to sales, and then last council meeting where we allocated 100,000 back out of the drought fund. So the circumstances changed in that we went from no money to provide shade structures to now we do have money, and a different decision of council which changed rather rapidly. So on the day it was 100% right when you were there, but 24 hours later it changed as to what the direction was coming from council. So
because if you recall at that meeting, that's when we changed the funding from.
That's correct. Yep.
So then start thinking. We went. Councillor Williams and I, at the conclusion of that meeting on the Wednesday, we went down to the weekend and had a look at what a mismatch that was. It was all different lengths, and how would you? We're trying to even out the ground at the deep end of the pool. How would that occur? Then that shed then would require significant modification to give it any chance of fitting again. And so that's when we started saying all those shade soils for the skate park, they look impressive. Why don't we start considering that? And then
No, I'm happy with the outcome. It's just that was if you like, a sanctioned committee meeting on that day. The next one was a photo opportunity that turned into a meeting that some of us couldn't attend. So, and I understand that these things move quite quickly and they develop really quickly, you know, but the second meeting, you know, really wasn't a proper meeting. It was a photo op that turned into one.
Yeah.
So,
Is that shed still up at the deep end? It's had to come down with the works.
Yes, and all the buildings have come down because of the work.
Yeah.
But we've retained all the buildings. They can go back up. That's not the issue. It's issue is whether you wish to go down this path as you've instructed staff to follow.
That makes a difference, doesn't it?
yeah, and I think if we vote for the one or a package here, we're basically saying that we are definitely saying that those steel structures can be done away with completely, which I think is the way to go because they're terrible.
I think
You'll
the
have a
consensus,
mishmash.
view would be that the whole pool area looks better now without those structures there as a start. If we can enhance it, we're giving the users more shade and a much more aesthetic appearance to the whole pool area. I believe we're on the right track in doing shade sales. It's just a question in my mind of how much to spend on.
I'm sure Jeff McCabe is very happy with what's happening too. It's fantastic.
With the recommendation, I agree. Oh, sorry. I agree with Councillor Brewer about the PVC, like over the other ones, but could you put scope in the recommendation that we have the structures what you're talking about? It's not without realm of money. It might be $10,000 extra to put the heavier posts up, just for down the track if they want to put the PC, the proper shade structure there down the track. You've already got everything in place there to be able to handle that. That might be an option. And that means we're still saving money. We're still probably going to save 50 grand. It might be only 10 grand we've got to do extra. You still got to float the concrete. You still got to go to a post. So instead of having a 3 mil post, you want to have a 5 mil post. So it's not like it shouldn't cost a fortune to do. Could we put that in the realm if everyone's sort of thinking about it? It gives you a possibility down the track.
Do we have the time though to turn this around and break the quote up into its components and, you know?
Is it possible to ring these people?
The only matter of a phone call.
Would that be good?
Yep.
After morning
And
tea.
maybe, given that, maybe we just defer this matter to the end of the meeting, and if we ask Kerry to make a call, so we just got a little bit more detail. Was that? Is that right?
Yep.
The gentleman is showing some reticence.
Can I just get an affirmation that the pool manager and the centre manager are happy with the steel structures being removed? Because I personally, I don't really go to the pool. I've got a lot of kids there. Maybe Councillor Derek takes the children there, maybe when the toddler pool's open. But yeah, I think that I want to know for sure whether they are happy with the steel structures being removed.
Mr. Mayor, again, I'll reiterate, they have been consulted. The issue I have with the comment, and I know why you're asking the comment, but if staff are going to tell councillors what the outcome is, you are not required. I do not believe that staff should be telling councillors what is going to happen in a community organisation. So, yes, we did consult, but I do not believe that I or Rolly or Darren or any other staff member in this room should tell you what the outcome is. I believe the outcome is your decision as to what you're doing.
I think Councillor Irving, but she probably wants a committee meeting to have it fully endorsed, but that's not possible, is it? So, is that what you?
Yeah, I just like to be more informed. They have experience. I just need more information, and I need to know more information.
Yeah, so sorry to put it that way, but if we go and buy a new tractor, does the staff member tell you what you're going to get and how much you're going to spend? The answer is no, you know, and it's no different. And it's just one of these things, and we're in standing order, so I'm being pretty blunt, but, you know, the fact is staff should not regulate what you do as councillors. It's a decision of council so that you get the right outcome for the community. And we have consulted with the staff. Now, I'd probably agree with the staff and say, look, if the structure is not suitable to what we want, give me back the old structures. But if the structure is going to be suitable to what the community wants, maybe I've got to live with what the outcome of the council decision is, which we do every time we make a decision. You know, we implement those decisions.
So what are they saying, the staff? Even though we make our own decision, but we can...
Well, they're happy with the structure, and the advice they have given us is they would like a waterproof structure.
Do they want the steel structures?
No, they'd like a waterproof structure. So if it's a shade sail, it's PVC. Hence the reason we got quotes for PVC sails, because that's what they wanted. Now, there's a cost factor.
Do they want the steel structures staying?
I think you're missing the point. No. They want a waterproof structure.
They want a waterproof structure.
So they don't want the steel
It doesn't
structures?
matter what it is.
It's the outcome that they're after.
They don't want the steel structures?
No.
That's the outcome.
I want to know what they want.
Well, I can't talk for them. They've asked us to price waterproof structures, and that's what we've priced.
You can't have the steel structures because they're different steel structures to have a PVC shade.
Yeah, if it's, you know, I guess, and I don't know their opinion, if it is not water resistant, then they want a structure that's water resistant. Is it steel? I don't know the answer. You know, it's water resistant. They want people to be able to stand out of the rain.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't put words in their mouth, but we have consulted with them, and this is the path we went down to get PVC sails, so we can be water resistant.
And the only other thing that I have some concern about is the 70% shade issue. So we take away the PVC, which would have been 100%. 100%. And we put something in there, 70% of the deep end of the pool. And again, I've been there for those carnival days in the summer and it's blazing hot. Is 70% enough? Is that, well, I don't know.
Maybe we have to bite the bullet and say, do it once, do it properly. Thanks for it.
I don't read it. Where do you read this one?
So,
That's on the report.
Well, this PVC is 100%, and I asked the question earlier about the open weave being 70%. 70% UV.
Am I reading it wrong if it says 99? Is that for the fabrics?
Fabrics, yeah, but sun, well, you know, it's 99, then it doesn't really matter, that's fine.
I might be reading it wrong.
What page is that on?
Just ask a financial question. Please, Mayor, we go with this 92,000. Where's the money? Where are we getting that from to cover?
Coming out of the loan.
Yeah, so what would be the 100 that we allocated from the drought funding?
Yep.
Yes. And then we had flagged the potential need for a loan to complete the swimming pool. So it was 750 of money that we had on hand, and I'll ask defer the DA in a second on this. And then part of in the budget, you'll remember we had the potential for loan funding to complete the swimming pool. DA, you might.
My understanding is we strong community fund around at 743, and council a 750 loan, and that's it.
Yes.
1.4. Yep. The whole project. Not to go over that.
Yep.
So I think what the general manager is saying here is out of that 750, we're going to be taking the balance of the price of sales. To go ahead the way the report is here. So 100 would come from the drought funding and the balance would come out of part of that 750 loan that we're going to take out. Not take a new loan out.
No, sorry.
So if we keep Shire sales under 100,000, then, you know, we're not affecting the rest of the budget.
No, but the pool, I think we're going to see that the pool budget is getting up there anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to help.
I'd rather not add to it.
Yeah, that's
And I'm reading here the fabric's 99% UV block, so
You can get a degree of block, you can get a degree of block on all shaded mesh.
okay.
Yeah, from
That
what
might be a
you
question to ask them also if you're talking to them, see what its properties are.
Can I just also comment from being a past parent with kids at the swimming club? Swimming club's late in the afternoon, in the evening, pretty well. The only time that area is really utilised is when the swimming club has their annual.
one day, yeah.
Middle of the day.
That's it, and it's the kids down there. Parents aren't allowed in that area. You've got the starter and children, and I think this.
There's either a pick up at school carnivals.
Yeah, but the central ones at night, and you've got the one day of the year. So to have a fully covered in area, I just think it's too much for the use of it.
Through Miss Mayor, I know school groups do visit the pool as well. One afternoon, my girls go on lessons. And, yeah, the school groups most days, leading up to the end of the year. So, yeah, maybe schools' use needs to be taken into account as well as the swimming clubs. So,
The question seems to be whether we need PVC or whether we need shade. If we can do 99% shade, I'm wondering whether that's okay.
yeah, I reckon it is.
So we can. Sorry, I haven't seen it. Councillor, it's in here. It says 99%.
Yeah. We just found that, so that sort of takes away the 7% issue. So I'm going to go for open weave personally.
Okay, do we need any further discussion before we go back into the council meeting, or
Or
do we need to reach a consensus here before we go?
Well, we're going to need to change the recommendation when we get back in council to have that open weave. I think if that's the way we want to go.
I'd really prefer everyone to be pretty much on the same page with this one, if that's at all possible, before we go back into council. So is any further discussion?
If they're going into open weave, is that going to satisfy the people who've requested the PVC one?
Simple answer is no.
No, it won't be, because it's still on the board through
Traffic. You're getting the PVC on the western side though.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a fair area, isn't it? 16 by.
It replaces that structure along with the viewing.
But it can be used by people who visit the children and, you know, if there's not a race on, they've got that shade, haven't they?
Yeah. So PVC's there on the western side.
Yeah, I just think the open weave saves us money. It's keeps it under our budget. But at the end of the day, aren't we here to spend the money as wisely as we can? You can't always have the Rolls Royce.
So that comes back to you put the bigger posts in to allow for down the track.
Yeah, I think we just need to probably have that number in front of us so we can make a really informed decision, and therefore perhaps defer this to the end of the meeting so we've got some information that sits with everyone well, and then we're really making the best decision we possibly can. I think that reasonable. Yes, Councillor Walker.
Can I also ask, going over old ground, the barrel vault on the western side, have they done, you know, this, when the sun's going down and that's the time when these races are on, does it give protection, you know, the angle of the sun, is it coming in? I don't know how far this vault,
Yes.
It will give them full protection and maybe the sun goes down or what time or...
The shadow diagrams show that the sun is towards the south and southwest. So as it gets lower, the sun comes in underneath the structures later in the afternoon. But remember the time's the pool. So generally daytime it doesn't matter. So the shade's coming up the main pool. So it's covering the toddler's pool and the main pool, and the shade at the block end starting block end is heading towards the water tower. So it extends the shade that way. The shade structures on the western side, the shade will move back towards where the old filter room was, diagonally along the structure itself. Again, as the sun gets lower, you're going to have sun shining on people. It's probably much better during the middle of the day when the sun's overhead that you've got all that area. But it won't be any different to what the steel structure was, which is a flat roof and the sun stood down behind it because there was no back wall on that structure because it was grass, and the intention is to keep it as grass in that viewing area.
So I think we move back into open council, and then we just defer this. Someone moved that we just defer consideration of this matter till the end of the council meeting. Is that a reasonable way to go? Yep. So I've got who moved us in. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Lindsay. You happy to move back into open council? And Councillor Taylor, Councillor Lindsay, happy to move that this discussion be postponed until we receive further information at the conclusion, towards the conclusion of this meeting.
Yes.
Any further discussion before we put that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports of the Division Manager for Finance and Administration. The first of those being the reconciliation certificate. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Williamson, second to Councillor Irving. Councillor Williamson.
It seems for a healthy bank balance, and also interest rates getting lower and up.
Lower than that now.
Is that 0.9 or whatever?
0.9.
Jesus.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
To Manager of Finance and Admin, is there a reason why it seems a bit, well, I'm not sure if this is a valid question, but see under term and rate, and it says 91 days for the National Australia Bank. I mean, the others say 90 days. Is there a reason why that number 20 is 91 and for the NAB it's 90 days for the others? Or have I got it wrong there?
It's all depends if it falls on every weekend or not. So if something like that at 92 days, if it actually falls on a Saturday, then they'll just carry it forward to the Monday. So depending on how it months, 31 days, 30 days, weekends, that's it. So we basically leave it up to the bank to let us know when it falls. We say usually 3 months. They come back with it days.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the reconciliation?
Just three, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, the Northwest Library, the money taken out, was that for the flooring? The 4,000? I'll put in. Yeah, no, taken out. What am I saying? Taken out.
May I answer that without going through the transactions? I do know that all the libraries put another contribution out of their priority grant to the Northwest Library for more borrow borrowings of 3,000 per council. So it may have gone in and it may have paid. I couldn't tell you the exact what without going through and drilling into the transactions.
Excellent. Thank you.
But coming close to the end of the year, Pam likes to spend all the money, so you'll probably see a bigger one next time.
But all for the benefit, but all for the benefit of the users of the library, so I don't, that's what it's for. Any further comments, questions before we put the reconciliation certificate to me? That being the case, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Manager Finance Administration's report there, that statement of rates and annual charges. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Brewer, Councillor Walker, Councillor Brewer.
Just moving the recommendation. Thank you.
Any comments, questions before we put that?
I've got a question, Mr.
Certainly.
Mayor. Under the, to the Manager of Finance and Administration, the collector's percentage of total receivable, so the total for 2019-2020 is 93.09%. Is this a gradual decline in what we've been receiving, possibly because of the drought, or is it a significant thing to be concerned about, or am I misinterpreting the data?
Mr. Mayor, I do believe obviously the drought has got a bit of an impact. If you look down to the bottom there, it gives you the figures are roughly around the same times. Also, the final instalment was due at the end of May, but we did extend it out. But there may have been things like that, might be late payments, but I do expect that our percentage won't be as high as what they were in previous years, and we probably with that basically down the drought. We have had about 3 people come to us that said that they want to try and pay by the 30th of June, and so we give them extra fee. So if they honour that commitment, they might bump it back up again. But yeah, I'm not overly concerned. I still think it's even at that rate, even if that was the end rate at the end of the year, I think that is acceptable compared to other councils in the area. 7% outstanding. Most councils run a lot bigger than that already, so no, I haven't got any concerns. And with the interest rate 10.9, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to make much money anyway.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions on the statement of the rates and annual charges before we put that? Okay, so put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3 of the Finance Administration's report, which is the adoption of the 2021 operational plan and estimates. Now we've covered this as a workshop, and then this has been out on public display. We had a couple of submissions regarding that. So someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Serdi, Councillor Derrick, Councillor Serdi.
No, as you said, it's been out there and we've had the workshops and it's been done to death, I think, so it should be good.
That being the case, any further comments, questions before we put that? Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4, which is the making and levying of rates and fixed charges, fixed and old charges. The only comment I would make is just a modification to any time that the term potable is used in terms of water usage. That infers that that water is drinkable, and in particular reference to Colli, we know that that is not the case at present. So to err on the side of caution, we will just have bore water as opposed to potable water in any of those circumstances, because no matter what, our bore water needs to be treated in every circumstance. So with that minor amendment, is someone happy to move that, incorporate that amendment in moving the recommendation? Someone to move that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Councillor Brewer. Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer.
Just moving recommendation makes sense. Yep. No, I'm happy with that.
I mean, this just facilitates what we've already discussed in terms of 2021 operational plan. So it's just spelling it out, what those various charges will be, and the rates and the fixed and the charge. Any further comments, questions before we put that? Anyone in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 5. The Finance Administration report there. This regards the request for assistance from the Warren Museum and Gallery Association. Is someone happy to move that, or would you prefer to suspend standing orders and have some discussion? Councillor Walker's nodding there, I'm seeing. Would you be happy to move that way, Councillor Walker, to suspend standing orders? Second for that, Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Walker.
I have read it. Just think that we need to just make sure that we're not getting ourselves in too deeply with this situation, to be honest.
Well, we have suspended that. Look, I think collectively we have some reservations about how it's a big project and how we've seen how relatively smaller projects need some real oversight, and how we might proceed and help Dr. Burke with this one is problematical, and will take some meeting, but I think the General Manager's had some preliminary discussions. I might defer to him on this and see how we can progress the matter for the benefit of the whole community, but soon that actually the project is completed in the manner that we would like to see it completed.
Before the General Manager, I mean, he's asking for quite a few things here, and even asking for the assistance of sourcing materials and contractors, and you know, that's a big ask of any organisation and time wise, and
but he's not asking it for free, is he? I mean, if it's taking up council resources, surely in that budget, you know,
contingency.
Administration budget, yeah. But I think I'm in a project. I'd have to defer to the General Manager. I haven't spoken with Dr. Burke except to congratulate him on achieving the funding. But General Manager's had at least one meeting.
Mr. Mayor, can we get back to the pool?
What do you think it was easier?
Councillors, I have had a couple of meetings with Dr. Burke, and I've got another meeting planned tomorrow afternoon with Dr. Burke to discuss how this goes along. At this stage, we've only really talked about council assisting in managing the money side of it, and we've done that for the River Smart project, and it does take up time of staff and our resources to do that. All things are going along well. These projects are great. When the wheels fall off, it comes straight back to council, and we spend a lot of time trying to negotiate between parties and contractors and government agencies. So there will be a cost somewhere down the track. We need to talk very seriously to the committee that's running this as to how they're going to run it, because if we're holding the money like River Smart, we try to ensure they comply with our procurement policies, that they get multiple quotes, that they just don't go off and, you know, employ mum and dad and our brother to do the work sort of thing. You know, because we're the ones that get audited financially, so there's got to be some rules around how all this works. It's a little bit up in the air, and I was talking to Dr. Burke last night, and you know, they're really happy they've got the money, but the starting point is still a little bit off at this stage, that they're not sure how they're going to progress. So I think we'll spend a fair bit of time consulting with them. Do we get right into the nitty-gritty of project management? I would hope not. I'd hope that would be an external party doing that, but it's got to be someone that's competent in buildings, and that discussion's been done with Dr. Burke as well. But you just can't pick a project manager that has no idea about what that structure is and what repairs need to be undertaken, because $3.5 million will walk out the door rather rapidly. So, you know, I think from a community perspective, it's great that council would hold some of that audit and control function, but yeah, I can see there's going to be some risk down the track if things aren't working, or you know, the committee members can't carry out the function properly. So I think that's something probably Mark Colton might have a talk to us about as well today, whether on camera or in the back room somewhere, as to, you know, how can this be, the risk be lessened and the project be delivered to a high value for the community. So, yeah, I have reservations, but, you know.
It does worry you when it says, you know, that it could be inherited by council. I mean, when you're taking on and that it's run by volunteers counts. I'm not it's a fantastic thing, but it really needs to be worked out before it's started and going down the track, I think.
That's why I think council needs to be involved, Mr Mayor, that, you know, we need to be there from day one, because if the committee says, well, we can't run it, we'll hand it to council, it'd be a brave council to say, no, we're not taking it as a community project. So I think long term, yes, it will come to council at some stage. There will be a volunteer component, but, you know, you need to be on the ground now, because if it's not reconstructed properly, those costs are going to come back to council to fix and maintain and do all that.
I think Dr. Berg, a little I've spoken to him, he's worried that his committee is of an ageing generation and that there's no young ones that are coming up behind to help with this and to run it. And I mean, that's going on everywhere throughout the community with these sorts of things. You know, maybe there needs to be some sort of a thing to get the youngies involved or some discussion too.
Just assume that they'd be demolishing that building and putting new up. Number one.
That was my next question. What caveats are on that money? Is it tightly controlled in that building, that's the building and what they have to do with it?
I haven't seen.
It's always cheaper to put a bulldozer through it, but can we?
The contract hasn't come out, but the proposal is the building stay exactly as it is, that it's repaired and used. The back section of the building, which is steel, it has to be upgraded for fire, so there has to be roofs or concrete block walls put in on the side boundaries. But yeah, the structure is as it is. Yes, I think any logical person has walked across there and walked through and went, it would be cheaper to demolish this and rebuild it to look the same, but that's not the intention.
Is it possible there was I had a discussion with a builder and he was along those lines of demolishing it, and I thought, and I said to him, is that what you're thinking? And he said, well, he was thinking, keep some of the beams and what's there presently. I didn't realise that floor was just sitting on sand. I mean, is it possible to keep things and build it in keeping with what it used to look like and reuse some of those materials that you can put aside?
Yeah, yes, I keep saying to Dr. John, one day I'm going to take a seat, sit it in the middle of the room and navel gaze for about 8 hours as to what needs to be done, and then be able to advise him, because, yeah, there's issues with the building, from rising damp in the brickwork to the old lime mortars starting to fret out, you know, the roof leaks, the trusses need repairs, the whole timber floor probably needs to come out and be replaced. You know, yeah, look, there's a lot of things that need to be considered before they start work, and, you know, there's not a lot of time to do that, and it's not about architectural and making it look pretty. It's about preserving the structure and making sure it works, and that when you put these artefacts in the museum, that you're not being impacted by mould through rising damp, things like that. You know, I think the people who donate will expect that the museum's at a high quality of protection, and the building currently isn't there. So there's a lot of thought needs to go in, little sketches to be drawn, and, you know, how do we fix what's there?
So does that responsibility fall on council, or is that outside advice that's brought in?
Mr Mayor, technically it's not a council project, and even this motion is to hold the finances so that they're managed correctly. There will have to be engineering advice. There'll have to be some unique solutions come up by manufacturers of products, especially around damp proofing the building. There's other things that are just straightforward that can be done today, such as changing the roof sheet. Those things can occur now, but it's the structure holding the roof sheeting up that gets the concern. So there's a fair bit of work to be done, and I think council should be a part of that discussion if somewhere down the track the community was to inherit the building.
I mean, part of the problem is I don't believe that Dr. Burke even has a really clear vision about where he's going and what he's doing with it. It's all a bit nebulous. There's gallery bit here and coffee shop bit here and museum bit here. It's all.
I think he was surprised when he actually got the grant.
We all were. But I think what we've got to do is I think we have a responsibility as council to make sure that this hits the road in one form or another, and that we have a pretty tight, in the kindest way, pretty tight rein on what's happening.
Just realise that council employees are going to be asked to be, spending a fair bit of time on this. And
well, I think it's got to the stage, as the General Manager said, I think it's going to be a job for a project person. That's their job. That's going to be their job.
Finding one would be interesting.
So I think the proposal here that we enter a memorandum of agreement, well, first thing we have to even go back a step is what are the expectations in that memorandum of agreement. And I think we need to perhaps accept this recommendation here, yes, but the memorandum of agreement will have to come to council, and just will have to be pretty. There'll need to be some really pretty robust discussions about how it's all going to work. This is not like the memorandum we have with the Smart, which is relatively simple. They had their own building and it was all going. This is a much more complex. Much more complex arrangement.
And also, just point two, is that a one-off or is this a continuing?
I believe.
Yeah, it's a one-off this year, but it'll be up to council annually to continue.
Essentially.
And that's potentially going to be in a memorandum of agreement. The council will take that and offset those rates as a donation.
Councillor Irving.
I have a question.
Yes.
With the recommendation, with number one, that's the one I'm concerned about, I think, the most, because I don't really know enough about the governance side of it, I guess. I think what Councillor Walker is saying about, in terms of our resources, in terms of your time, General Manager, and our employees' time in that aspect. I'm not sure how. Yeah, so maybe number one we could reconsider in that. I don't know. But the MOU, I think number 2 and 3 are quite achievable. And I'm just concerned about number one because
I think that can be incorporated pretty much in the memorandum. I think we just have to have the very clear guidelines about what the expectations are and how that. And the second question for you, Councillor, I think is how that would actually be funded. I mean, it's not a. That's something that's not within our budget to be able to handle. Something that might take nearly a full-time employee.
Would be. Well, as has been highlighted with the River Smart project, that employees in this building have spent a lot of time doing what's required of the. So you can't keep repeating the same thing. I don't think it's not fair.
Mr. Mayor, in that project, there are 2 paid project managers in the River Smart one as well. And to be honest, you would need an on-the-ground project manager for this at least 3 days a week. to be there. And that won't be resourced out of council because, one, we just don't have staff sitting around waiting. You know, the finance side will put a burden on council, as the River Smart one does, because the requirement is a monthly reporting and having your finance up to date. You rely on the external parties to get it here on time, because as soon as they don't, we're the ones in the firing line. So there are these things and agreements we have to make up front, and how do we fund it? It's really comes out of staff donate their time after hours as well as, you know, work during hours to try and get everything they've got to do done. But with such a project and the value of it, I believe from a community perspective, if council's holding the funds, the community will believe the funds are being managed properly, and that takes any sort of slur off the good people who are in the committee trying to get this up and running. So it comes back to council, and you know, I think that's the important part. Who manages it? I think we need to talk to them about that, and then find someone external at council that's able to do that job. You know? But it will still take a lot of time. You know.
Two questions from me then. Is it on that committee that's associated with the building and that museum? Is there a need for council representation on that to drive governance correctly? And secondly, therefore, point one in here, is there any, why are we referencing the Macquarie Marshals project in that first point? Because it looks to me like there's already some sort of divergence in the way those projects will be managed, enough that if we tie ourselves to that resolution being like Macquarie Marshes, then we can't break away from that. If it turns out that this is a massive thing and it needs to have other funding or other funded individuals or something like that, we tie ourselves to the same structure. Can we remove, is there any damage in removing the Macquarie Marshes reference and just say that we will, assist them with the governance and finance?
And after management. No, look, there isn't. It's really a reference to how do we run that, and I would say, strictly speaking, we only run the finance side of it. That's what our role is.
Well, see, if the governance is not directed correctly back at the committee level, then it comes to things will come to council and they'll be potentially not in line with our expectations either.
Yes.
So we guide them with the governance, and we have that in the MOU. This is how you run. This is how we recommend you run meetings. And those sorts of things. So that when those decisions come to council, they have to come to council. They come in a manner that we can make a decision on. And we understand that those decisions will be made as if they were a committee of council, I suppose.
No, Mr. Mayor, our role should just be in finance and assisting them with contracts. So that's the governance side. Contracts, making sure that they follow procurement rules that are set by the federal government, that the contract they're going to sign with the federal government that they stick to as to their reporting and structure. That's what we're really saying. Yeah. But recognising that there will be a lot more work outside of that stuff will undertake to make sure the project happens. And that's what happens with River Smart. I would guess there's probably close to 30 hours a month of staff time on the River Smart project as a minimum.
And that's concerned. And this is potentially going to have more than 30 hours, particularly early on this, and we've got no means of recovery. And it's not just recovery; it's the lost opportunity that those hours mean that staff member or members can't do at council, adding value that our ratepayers are paying for.
I think staff members pick up the hours, believe me, outside work.
So we still, this has been a standing order. Just to what you were talking about, Councillor Brewer, would you in time be happy to move, or, sorry, the movers of stands down was Councillor Walker and Councillor Surdy, just after conclude the first point 1 at the end of grant and just leave out the same as currently being undertaken with what you need to find administration, what?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason I put that in was to give us a guideline to say all we're going to do is look after finances, not expect to do this.
The parameters.
We're currently doing 3 for the Macquarie classes.
Right, so you
That's why I put that, specifically put that in there.
you want
So they couldn't come back and say, oh, no, you're going to look after financial management, you did this, and this, and this, and this. So I just wanted to tie it down.
Oh, okay. You think that's
why I referenced it.
you think that defines it better than, okay, because my view is that makes it broader, but you're thinking that actually closes it in.
What we're actually currently doing for the route smart grant, and that's why I put that in that way.
Okay. Well, I just thought with that, the MOU would have that structured in there and have the limitations.
Would only be for the ongoing afterwards, is what Dr. Burke is talking about for the ongoing, after they finish the grant. They want the.
Look, I'm comfortable in a way, as long as Dr. Burke's group understand the limitations of what council is willing to and is able to do.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if we could have a progressive MOU, which we do have with River Smart and the WOW Centre, because the next version is coming of that MOU. But initially it says council will do these things, which is finance and governance for the grant. After that, we structure another one as to how it progresses once this building is developed and what council's role is. And that's what's coming with a number of them. So, you know, the WOW Centre MOU and the MOU for the youth centre, as we work through that, the same thing, that there's an initial stage and a longer term stage within them. So I think it can be done in the MOU, but yeah.
Yes, I'm reading now this MOU to Management Administration. I'm reading that as you were just alluding to then, that's at the conclusion of the project, then we enter into a similar arrangement as we have done with Rivers Smart. This is not to do with the building construction itself.
I think looking at Dr. Burke's second email, when he actually met, that's where he mentioned the MOU, possibly entering into an agreement about the ongoing cost and maintenance. He wasn't looking for an MOU from the construction stage or acceptance of the grant. That's why I put it.
Yes, that's much clearer. Thank you. Okay, so the stumbling block is probably that first one then.
As long as his group are clear on what it is they're being offered, and not project management skills, and not transferring the risk to council.
So, from that point of view,
you have a council decision. I'm just saying, the reason that I referenced it in there was to let them know that that's expect us to go over and above 30 hours that we're doing a month already.
Everyone's pretty clear on that. That's absolutely clear when there's a bit of discussion on that.
Yeah, but as long as there's no hangover, if those things are coupled here in a resolution, I'm more comfortable if they're separated, because they're not the same, even they're close to the same sorts of projects, really.
I think what the important part is just governance and financial management. So they're the two things that we're talking about here. We're not talking about anything beyond that. And I think that's pretty clear there now. The more we consider it. Okay. I'm just going to ask that Councillor Walker and Councillor Sturgey move that we resume standing orders. You're happy to do that? And then I'm going to ask for a resolution regarding item 5 of the Management Finance Administration report. Along the lines of that recommendation, is someone who happy to move that? Mr. Walker?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Sturgey, anyone?
Yes.
Councillor Walker, you happy to move that? Councillor Sturgey?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? I believe we'll take some good discussion on this matter.
Just one query, if I can, clarification. With regard to the discussion about the possibility of a councillor being on that committee? Are we still looking at doing that or not? Or is that the decision?
No, I didn't actually mean council law, I meant council representation, which kind of, it's already in place with the general manager, just to, to help steer where they're going.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important that there are council laws on the committee, and there are council laws on the River Smart Committee, which helps sometimes. So I think as part of any MOU, I think we should request a council law, at least one, be on, on the committee, just to listen and see what's going on.
It's good to, as I know with the River Smart it is, it's good to just to keep up with things and input and when we have meetings, when council has meetings and we have a meeting with the Smart, they say, I can give them information also, which it's a two-way thing, so it works well. And you just keep up with what's
So
happening.
we'll be mindful of that when it comes to the memorandum of understanding with the New Zealand Association. Okay, any further discussion before we put that? So it's a recommendation as stands that we're voting on? Yep. Put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 6, sale of land in the Gunnerborough estate. I think there's a map table to go with that item. The late matter. So someone happy to move item 6? Councillor Taylor. Second, Councillor Derrick. Councillor Taylor.
I can't see any problem in recommendations from this, because so 2 more blocks is sold.
Absolutely. Concur with your view, Councillor Taylor. Absolutely. Someone's showing some confidence, and that's excellent. But there is a slight discount there on the sale of those 2 blocks, but very happy to, personally, very happy to see that go through and 2 blocks. Well, Councillor Derrick.
Yep, sorry, true. So just regarding the discount, so that's included in terms of sale, not an additional discount that's been requested in the letter. That's just terms of sale for anyone paying.
Councillor, I'll defer to the Manager Finance Administration. Jack, just for absolute clarity on that.
Oh, there's 2 years to there. Basically, the terms of sale was if you paid for it on settlement, signing the we give $1,000 discount, or if you wish to, you can pay it off over 4 equal instalments, with no discount. So basically, with this one, we're actually giving them a discount and allowing them to pay it off interest-free over the 3 years. With a quarter on signing of the contract and then a quarter each year annually. So the only variation from the term of sale is the 1 and 2 is an and/or. What we're using and not or.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions before we put that? Any case, all those in favour? Yes. Carried. No notice of motion. Questions with notice. I have been in conversation with Councillor Walker regarding a matter of urgency. Councillor Walker has a matter of urgency wishes to raise. What have you to do there? Okay, we'll defer that, Councillor Walker. And you'll need a second to Councillor Walker to move to a matter of urgency.
To work on some of that morning too.
We turn to morning tea, and it gives us a chance to consider that and also the information we're seeking regarding the shade sales. Council will resume the our ordinary meeting, and I think we'll go back to item 4, report of the General Manager regarding the swimming pool shade covers. During the break, the General Manager's had the opportunity to try to catch up with the manufacturers for some further information so we can make an informed decision. I'll just refer to the general manager just to bring us up to speed with what he has down out there.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor, I asked a few questions as to the costs of options. First of all, if you go back to shade cloth, the cost will be approximately $34,000. So I can't give you exact because the gentleman I was talking to was also in the meeting. So he said it's approximately 34,000. The PVC is 92,000, and the other curved structure that's shown in there is 104 as per the pricing. Question was asked, can we put in stronger poles to support PVC for later on? And the answer is yes. The poles for the PVC are higher than the shade cloth, and the reason for that is it allows the water to run off the PVC, so they've got to be up higher to drain the water, and the poles are heavier and the footings are deeper. So yes, you can put them in, but this stage and it doesn't change the pole layout. Breakdown in costs of the shade structure, and he couldn't give me the one for PVC. On the shade cloth, he said it's about 30% of the price. It is, the cloth itself is 30% of the price of the whole structure. So if you go PVC, obviously that escalates because it's 3 times the cost. So PVC must be really dear. I've also asked him to check. I gave you some advice about page 8. The structure should be 16 by 24 metres. He's told me that it looks a bit weird, but it's actually 21 by 24 metres as shown. He said that is the size. He said pricing, just because of the way it's laid out, that is the correct pricing, even though it looked like it should be the 16 by 24. So, and that comes back at 92. I asked him logical questions. If we put up shade cloth, does anyone ever change it to PVC? And the answer is no. Why would you? And to be totally honest, I would probably think that in the future, the council wouldn't change it to PVC because of the cost at that stage. And again, I'd come back to the report. I would recommend to you, based on discussions with staff and other people, that maybe you should put in the PVC at this stage. I know there's a big cost difference, but there's reasons they want rain protection. So that would be my comment too.
Councillor, is that information helpful to you? Not necessarily.
So for that structure, if it was going to be PVC, which one of these diagrams looks most like what we've put up there?
One on page 8. Page 9, sorry. Yeah. So it's a square that's pretty stretched across 4 poles. So he said to me, if you want full rain protection, then you need to go to the domed one, which comes down a bit lower. He said that gives you full rain protection, but he says that comes at a cost of $104,000. He said, do you really need it? I can't answer the question because if it's raining, we generally shut pools. If it's thunderstorm, we don't allow people into the pools. It's a risk. Those sorts of things. And discussions with Wendy were that, if it starts raining and there's thunder and lightning around, everyone scatters and finds in the amenities for 15 minutes. It passes over and everyone comes back out. So they were her comments as to what happened. So, yeah, I guess I'll leave it up to you guys.
Can I ask, through there, the page 12 then, they've got the PVs, there's two, there's the white one and the blue one. PVC. Is there a difference, or which one would be being erected?
It's the top one,
The white one,
yeah,
okay.
which is a smaller area than the yellow one we're looking at on page 8. So it's smaller in area, but because it curves down more, it gives better side protection. You see, if it's purely for rain, then that's the one they would use. But, you know.
So that bottom one is not PVC then?
The bottom one is PVC.
So is it
And that looks like the ones that will go on the western side.
Oh, so the white will go at the end and the blue possibly on the western side. So,
We won't be that shape.
The bottom ones will be that shape, but on the western side, the top one is an option.
That's the 112.
It's the 112
okay.
option.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
So the western one's going to be something like this blue filler on the bottom. Is going to be PVC. Yes, the deep end pool.
Yep. It's just the deep end, really, whether you wish to go around 4,000 or around 92,000.
And I think we think they look better than steel sheds, seeing they're being pulled down. Yep.
Favourite PVC.
For kids.
Okay,
So there was your call.
what are we thinking, council? This is, I think we just continue with the discussion before we come up with recommendation. I'm just trying to recall exactly when Kay and Swimming Club made a submission about would we help co-fund that shed, what they're actually, what the end game was there. Were they trying to waterproof it or were they just a shade structure?
I think shade was the shade structure.
It wouldn't have been this because they wouldn't
No,
have
we're just saying,
then.
we're just saying what was the purpose of it.
I reckon the talk I'm sure was shade.
Yeah. I think it was for those who were starters, wanted shade because they're out there all day. I think that was my recollection of that. So that then gives us an indication of really what we're looking for. We're trying to get the outcome that the swimming club wants. And maybe it is only shade, maybe it isn't waterproof. I'm afraid, Councillor, I haven't got a firm view on it. Councillor Irvin.
Yeah, I just remembered, like, you know, when they have carnivals, they need, or just any electrical devices. I don't know, is that a reason why they wanted it waterproof? Is there any electrical?
No, we will be putting in waterproof power points around the whole area. Wendy marked all those up on Monday for us, and we'll be post-going for the time clocks and for the LAC computers and stuff. They've got funding for, so now that will all stand independent of any structure that's there. Even if we put back all the old steel ones, we'd still stand independent, so that it worked.
If you're moving in 3 items, I'm very happy to move the little pool, go ahead. The side structure on western side, go ahead. Third one's the other one. If it was for me, and I had to make an executive decision, I'd be going for the cheaper option. That's me personally. I agree with Councillor Rule there. Just how many times do you get used a year? I'm trying to come up with that.
Yeah.
It's my biggest.
Trying to come up with how many times it rains in summertime down there that they need that thing. I mean, and if it does, they just don't think they'd be there if the storms are out.
That's right. Summertime, there's storms, and so everyone gets the hell out of there. Yeah. So
I mean, you have to consider
We're not in
whether,
Olympics.
60 grand, is that the best use of the 60 grand that we have available to us as a council to do things?
I have to say, okay, material too.
Okay, someone happy to move?
I'll seconded Councillor Williamson's. Yeah.
yeah.
So, Councillor Williamson, you were moving,
1, 2 and 3.
the 3 is the
Shape
people.
off.
So it's
Sorry, one you're moving PVC. If it's a recommendation as it stands in front of us, it's PVC at the starting block end of the pool. If you want to move for shade cloth down there, we'll just have to change that point one of the recommendation to shade. Shade, whatever it's called. Open way, thank you.
Yeah, I can't see the value.
So Councillor Williamson, you're proposing that 2 and 3 stand, 1, the council approve the purchase of open weave shade cover for the deep end of the main pool at a cost of approximately $34,000.
34,000. Yep, I'll move that.
With that, you've got a seconder. Councillor Beach. Councillor Williamson.
I think we've had a fair bit of discussion about this one. Due to budgetary restraints for one, and the amount of use it's going to have, I think it's a good option.
Councillor Garrett, I just have to be clear that have we got this, we were on the forward discussion, will it be originally?
support you.
Second up. Okay. So we have a move and a second. Councillor Williamson, nothing further. Sorry, Richard, any further discussion before we put that?
Like looking at an auction, isn't it?
And, you know, we're only at the discussion stage. Is there any further questions before we put that?
Just Councillor Garrett just mentioned, we just stick to the poles, the original poles, not the PVC poles.
Yeah, I think we just, yeah, I'll stick to that. Yes, Councillor.
Just one more thing, just to make sure, the reason, so the main reason they wanted it water resistant was just protection from the rain.
Yes, correct.
Oh, happy. If it's just the rain, then probably.
Yeah.
I suppose, just, I know where you're coming from. The shade sail is bigger than the roofing that we took down. So it will cover more area and will be concreted underneath as part of the normal process, but it's a bigger area, so there'll be more shade. Yeah, obviously, if it's an open weave, it won't stop big downpour or rain, but, you know, like all shade cloth, you can stand there with just getting spattered a little bit. Yeah, so I know what you were thinking.
Okay, any further discussion before we put that?
Can I just talk for the motion as well? We are putting in a 6 by 36 metre fully undercover PCB area on the western side to get away from the rain if it does rain that much. So we have got an area where people can go. Good option. Yeah. If it rains that side. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Any further discussion before we put that? Okay, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, going back to the matters I alluded to as we're going to our agenda, matter of urgency. Councillor Walker, you wish to raise a matter of urgency. I'll leave you to move that way and someone to second that.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Walker.
Well, I did put an email out. I put various emails out, but the main one is the meeting that we had last Saturday, the Western Pipeline Action Group. It's not really about the pipeline that we were meeting. It's about the IPC hearing that's coming up. This process is now grinding to the end. So the state government's ticked an Narrabri because it's a state significant development that needs to go to this independent planning commission, and there's various people on the panel. I can't remember, there's 4 or 5, I'm not sure. And they'll have it over a period of time, the 20th to the 24th of July. Because of COVID, they've brought in well, I suppose it's a thing to say that there won't be a venue where people can go. They'll do it electronically. So you can talk, but you need to, have the equipment and the, for that you can listen on the phone or you can put in a written submission. So what I'm asking of council, and I was asked by the meeting to ask council if they can supply a venue for this IPC hearing on the dates that are in the email, and the equipment that's required for people to listen on a phone or to speak. A lot of the one at the meeting, they just don't have any coverage, or it just drops out. And if they want to do a verbal, they're worried that they will just drop out or won't be heard doing a verbal presentation.
So
that's what I'm asking if it's possible for them to supply a room and the equipment that's required.
Just a question, I believe you've got to register for this?
Yeah, but if you want to do a verbal, you have to fill out a form and have it in by the 10th of July. Mm-hmm. Thank you, I forgot that. Yeah. So, but if you want a written submission, they can go till a week after the hearing, and they might actually extend that. So as an individual or a group can put in a written submission afterwards or before, but you've got this time.
Councillor Walker's raising this just for information particularly, but then asking for a venue. I think, Councillor Walker, we had a bit of discussion. Maybe the Sporting and Cultural Centre is somewhere appropriate where we had our last meeting, the carpet area downstairs perhaps. If that fits with.
Is it possible, I mean, the screen and to have a link verbally, is that possible with the equipment
I'd have
that's
to ask
available?
someone, not as technologically challenged as Dan, is it? Or then it'd be possible to have a screen where people can view that, but actually whether they can speak, they really have to use a mobile phone of their own. Would they still be able to speak, but they'd still be able to see the screen responses? Would they not? Or is it?
There is a number you can ring. They
Yeah.
give you a number that you can ring to via your mobile, but there's also that portal, you can do it. Yeah.
It's very, I just I'm just looking at here, if life size can put into Zoom meetings, if it's a Zoom meeting, and it can.
Right.
So we could use,
Up here.
well, that's to go down to the complex
Yeah,
operations, that's a pretty big meeting.
Yeah.
And people can talk through to and fro from that, and then it come up on the screen on the TV down there for it, that's all. And then everyone can talk into the mic there. After I learned how to actually do it, it was a Zoom meeting, but that way you can video conference with everyone in the room.
It's not a video conference, it's a court hearing.
Yeah.
In principle, it's a court hearing, so only one person will be allowed to talk.
Mm.
They need to be in an isolated area because the court might put up, or the independent panel, I should say, seeing that's what they are. They wouldn't allow a table of people like this to keep talking because it couldn't be captured, so it's going to be one.
Oh yes, so it might be just one person from maybe this organisation that is going to do a verbal. Would they be better to ring up?
It'd probably be better, if we made, say, upstairs available, that they could get in the meeting room upstairs and sit there with whoever and talk on the phone, and then people downstairs could listen to the presentation on the screen. Yeah, otherwise, it's like this, I'm sure they'll shut it down and pump those people out.
So if that's possible, that would be fantastic. It goes for those folded from 9:30 till, I don't know, they don't give an ending time, but from 9:30 onwards.
It's 4 days.
Or Monday to Friday. So it's 5 days.
So we would have to contact the independent panel to find out what they're broadcasting on and how. The courts do broadcast on their own sites. So it could be a public site, but I'm not sure if it's a full public site or an invitation only public site. So we might have to register. So we'll chase that up if this goes through.
I've got the blurb on it. I might be able to give you that information also. Thank you.
So we need, that's right. So what we're going to need is motion, Councillor Walker saying that council make available a facility for the viewing of the planning commission's hearing
On the Narrabri gas project.
on regarding the Narrabri gas project. Yeah. Okay.
On the dates, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we can put all that in.
Yeah.
So, broadly, I don't think we need to read that. Any further discussion? Council's making that room available and the technology available. That's any further discussion before we put that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Just a reminder that Minister Mark Holt will be here at 12 for a conversation. With that, is everyone available? I just use.
I'm involved as well.
Councillor Walker question about her email. At all about it's related to the matter of urgency.
The motion.
No, I'm all for that, but just email. You don't have to if it's not appropriate.
We'll have some sort of 20 minutes after this. If you
I
want.
think we'll conclude this meeting. If you need to just ask Councillor Walker a question, that's
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind trying.
I think we'll conclude this meeting and thank you very much for your